She's no, I guess. Just a little flat strap. Pretty sure. She's got long features. She's already a foot taller than it is.
Yeah.
He's 8.
I talked to the back of the door, she's over to the side, she told me to take him to work.
So I just think about
We had a really good experience.
how tall's her father?
Like emergency
Yeah.
bathroom. He's like,
He's only 5'10".
and if you Google it, it could say pain, anxiety,
Yeah.
ear infection, neurological, stroke, I mean, a whole gamut of things.
Yeah.
I think we were jumping. This one,
No, it's not, yeah, it's
It's out 6:30, just ring on preps. To his credit, one of our earlier emails, 6:30 was talked about. Posted for there on this.
Well, just depends, I double take it today to make sure.
I questioned it too. It's just about 10 minutes out.
Oh.
Yeah. Other emails. Were the times to say 6:30.
Just for public awareness, our meeting was supposed to start at 6 p.m. for our workshop, but we had times mixed up, so our consultant will be a little late. Hopefully we'll start in the next 10-15 minutes. Yeah, so I have a Halloween eyeball right now, and so it's so distracting, you can't look. So we're just gonna stand. I don't know, I've never broken a blood vessel, and it happened on Friday, and I was like, what is that? And so I took a picture and sent it to like a tech and the eye doctor, and they were like, oh, it's no big deal, like, and it was just a tiny little speck. The next day, I worked at the concession stand, and my family's like, you can't look at people like that. So then I've just worked from home, so I've just been like, mindful. Yeah. So yes, I could wear my sunglasses in here.
There was a teacher at the football game, and we were like, all looking at her. She wore lenses, and no, it's second day pencils. I thought maybe just, I don't know. She's like, no, I thought everyone put lenses on, so just make sure you wear them they were on.
Yes, I never wear them, so it's frustrating, but I don't have a pirate eye, like, you know, I was thinking of my stuff I might have in the costumes I don't have anymore, so.
Another person.
Well, and if you're this person, so I was thinking, like, I said at home, like, well, Sue's gonna be so grossed out, because if you're sitting on that side, and I, like, didn't have it covered, it's like a, so.
So what do you?
I guess they would roll a blood vessel. So it looks like a Halloween eyeball. it's just
Okay,
not.
so that, I did hear you right, I was
Yeah.
confused.
That makes me feel better to think about it with the holiday.
Holiday.
Yeah.
You have like a month and a half yet.
Well, I hope
I
I
hope
don't
it
wear
heals
for a
up,
month
yeah.
and a half. Oh, such a positive thing to share. You guys, if you haven't been there in a while, because I have not, but I visited Leonard on Thursday, and then I went out and then went to the Ovid side to go in their entrance and just visit. And it's fabulous in there. Like, I've seen it before, but all the different classrooms and like the different art projects
No,
they've been in.
no,
I started
I'm
to
sure
share
that's
it
on
on
its way.
Oh, so did
Take some
I.
pictures of what they're doing. Like, it is so neat in there and how they have it set up. So please take pictures of it on Facebook and share all the things that their offers. I was just really wild in there. So, if you haven't been there in a while, visit.
Well, I read this last week, so I should like somebody said, I was trying to do it about that.
I swear.
I go check to see what, I don't know, maybe that's last week, but.
Yep. Yeah, she's extended that for me. She spends quite a bit of money on some equipment, so she's really into it. I believe so.
Because I saw that she was like.
I just found it
seen
again,
these
yeah.
pictures, they were cute. Okay, so I can trust them.
It's like something we're supposed to remember to do that.
I was so concerned about
And I was,
that I'm not as exhausted as they are. Just waiting for them, like.
And some of the stuff.
John was at my house, it's not too bad. Was that when I was in this big, there was small amount of people.
the house
That's
that
not.
made it seem like it's.
I don't think
Was
that's
there
what
any
I'm
passion on talking and this group just to make sure?
I had no idea. And we were out front saying our fathers, and then he has this, like, so much things and more nice, I just like doing reception and like, people walk around. But they were people pulling me back together, and my children were Russian music and us laughing and like hearing real tight emotion. And like, it's really nice. But it's ended up being like, melody back. Yeah. Like, maybe a smaller package of pictures, and, you know, to have that figure. It's like one of my. Yeah. Right, I know, it's, I know, but I just like, it's, I don't know, but like, and you know who did it? Ernie Bach. She keeps moving, just set up a stand, place in the back. Paid him like $100 or something, and went around and hit the cameras and video.
Yeah, they go there.
Is she
Canada.
talking?
And that kid got really,
She's a reader, huh?
Yeah. Hold on a second.
Yes. Well, that's January. Had to go in and participate, even though some of us already had.
And greens
Like
are
shopping,
shopping
no,
down in
some people are like, I,
Summer. Just like, could we not go 58 for those stuff? Change. I was okay with that. I have an idea. There's 3 of us.
I liked when we all took it, that was nice, because we all.
But the thing is, you, I mean, I know obviously greens are over there, but I tell you what, house real last week was the zoo. When you got Bart's deal going, I think you had 2 different cruises going, going to Fred Harris's and then going to Butcher's. It was just something.
We all think we know that, we said, let's let our dogs, and just to make sure, like, I never facilitated myself, so it's okay, like, can't hurt.
Then you have just the beers going there.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yes. Will we do it November? But do we want to start on November? I think we should, maybe November, it's still number 6 months. Like the actual yearly one is
These two are just like.
Usually advanced, yeah. Foul.
Well, they're not gonna get through the winter.
Maybe that'll work better because of when you started. Hello.
Hello. Apologies, I had 6:30 in my mind written down, so
We did have that, I went back to email them with the first email at 6:30, so it's not. not your fault. I should have double checked with you.
one is yours.
I've caught you.
That's not very true.
Do it quicker or anything? Since it's all over. I've got one in my hand, so I didn't know if it's already
See
set.
that now, all set. We gotta start the meeting though, real quick. Maybe start the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Are you ready for us to do that, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm ready to roll.
All right.
Call to order. Start with the pledge of allegiance. The flag over there. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call shows we have everyone except for Dr. We don't have any written correspondence. No Ovid-Elsie personnel. No public participation. So we're on to number 3, our successful superintendent transition with Mr. Mark Torrey.
Good evening, thanks for having me back. Hopefully you've all had a great summer, and we're ready to hopefully, really, your transition's been going on, but this is part of the service that comes with the search, and so hopefully want to make certain that both you and Superintendent Horak, that you work together well as a team, And so that's the whole purpose of just kind of going over and talking about our roles and responsibilities, that sort of thing. So just to make certain, I want to see that you should have a PowerPoint.
Here's all our extras from Cindy, and then she had already actually printed some.
Oh,
So
okay. And then should there be a couple different handouts that hopefully you have all the same ones, so. Got the breath a little bit. Again, I apologize for being a little bit late. It was luckily I didn't run into traffic. I work in Kalamazoo now, so it's like sitting in the meeting, it's like, hey, I've got to go. It's 4 o'clock. I got to be in the car like 10 minutes ago. So here we are. So anyway. So our plan tonight is just to, again, go over our roles and responsibilities that we have as board members and as superintendent, and kind of divide those out. Look at the performance evaluation system and just review anything on that. If there's something that you want to talk about or talk about the standards or anything like that. I think you've all been through the training and evaluation system, so that's important to know. The only reason I thought that is because I did forget one thing, so let me forget after this to give this to you. We want to look at any goals that you already have in place, or how to go about setting some goals for the district, and then expectations that you may have for our superintendent or not. So that's where we plan to go tonight. And before I go any further, I'm going to pass out your profile sheet, and if you could check it over. Mostly want to make certain that your contact information is correct, so MASB can just send you emails automatically, or the school board magazine that we get quarterly that comes right to you, rather than sometimes you get hung up with the school districts and places like that, so it's easier just to have a way to contact you. So you can initial if it's correct, plus we have to take roll so I can show that I was actually here. So I'll just start here, and if everybody could just check that out, make sure your information is correct. I think it probably is, because Crystal, it looks like it was all updated with the correct information earlier, so anyway. So those are our objectives. Any questions on that so far? Basically, when you look at this, the important part is that the board and the superintendent work as a team together. You're the ones that are closest to the community. You're the ones that are the go-between the community and the school, and as is the superintendent. And it's very important that you're all on the same page. When we went through the search process, I can tell that everybody really cares about the district and you want to do what's best for your students here. And so I think it's important that you continue to do that. And basically, if you work as a team, when your superintendent's successful, your district is successful. And so I think you want to set each other up for success. So it says here we want to maintain a nice, healthy balance. And as we look at the roles in the next couple slides, so if you could pull out the sheet that has 2 columns, superintendent roles and board roles. So if we could I'm going to give you a couple minutes just to look over that, and what do you notice are common themes for the superintendent, and what do you notice are common themes for the board? So go ahead and I'll give you a couple minutes to look that over. So as you take a chance to look at that, and then should interrupt it, if there's any questions you have, don't be afraid to stop me and say, you know, something you want to talk about as we go through this, or any of this stuff, because I'm here for you. So if there's something that you want to really hone in on, I'll do the best I can to facilitate that discussion. And hopefully, it should work just fine. But if I'm looking at the superintendent role on the left-hand side here, what do you notice with a lot of, almost every one of them, as far as his role is in the school district? What are what's common words, themes that you see on that side? Manages, recommends,
Analyzes or interprets.
analyze, interprets, advises. Okay? Yes, he helps make decisions, but his job is to help you with making sure you have the right information, and it can help you make the decisions for the district. Okay? So if you look at, because when you look at the board side, what do you see? Or common things you see there?
Reviews.
There's reviews, yes.
Policy development.
Policy development, yes, somewhat.
Approval.
Well, approval, very, yes, that as well. Approve, establish. So it's really, your role as a board is to act on the recommendations that come from your superintendent. So you're going to set, for example, if we're looking at budget, you're going to set your budget priorities. Your superintendent will come in and recommend a budget, and you will review the budget and look at it and say, you may say, hey, we're going to focus on math curriculum, for example. What resources do we have going towards math? And if it's not what you want, you may set the priorities and have adjustments made. But ultimately, he should be bringing you the recommendations, and then you would eventually approve a budget once it meets the goals that you have set for the district. What about, if we're looking at this, what about evaluation and hiring? What do you see as the board role in the district on that?
Only the superintendent.
Only the superintendent. That's your role. You do officially hire other employees, but it is at the recommendation of your superintendent. Okay? So, which I'm pretty certain we follow that already, but that's always a good reminder, because sometimes people get that, and their lines get blurred, and they want to do more than they'd like to so-called evaluate. A lot of times boards like to evaluate coaches, evaluate other people in the district, and that's really up to the superintendent or his designee as far as evaluating. Again, in the long run, you approve the hiring of certain teachers or coaches or whatever, but it comes to the recommendation of the superintendent. Kind of the same way with policy. You know that probably from Troon, or use Troon or Neola. So Neola twice a year gives you recommended policies that usually it's in the fall. They have one in spring. Sometimes it's a little bit off on that, but they try to match what the law is out there, make sure your policies are up to date on that point. And so it's up to your superintendent and someone with a policy committee. I don't know if you have a policy committee or not, but we'll very often have a committee that will work with the board, work together to help develop the policies, adopt them to match what you need in your district. But ultimately, and then you adopt the policies. Mr. Morat doesn't get to adopt them, he gets to recommend them. He gets to carry them out and make certain that your staff is
So I have a
included.
question.
I have a question, so how does the board have any input? You know, like you bring something that's recommended, hopefully what's being recommended is everybody's in line with it, but when that doesn't happen, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
but you know what to do when things go right, but when things, like somebody has a question, or sometimes that's often interpreted negatively,
Mhm.
to really pound something out so that it's better for the district altogether,
Right.
maybe. So how does that like fit into this?
Well, that's where the part about, you work with your superintendent to develop it. Hopefully he'll come in with recommendations. And quite often, from your policy service, they're gonna make certain you're following the law. But still, every district has something a little bit different in order to make that, to be adopted by the district. There's a lot of times they'll have choices you can make, and that's where the board really had input on that to help out. That's the thing where, again, it's a teamwork between, probably Mr. Horak knows the district best, because he's running the day-to-day operations. So he can help advise you and take input from you to develop the policy.
And I know that sometimes we've had like first reading, second reading. Are those the places where you say, like maybe
Yes.
voice your
Yes.
concern or non-concern or extra that you may or may not want in there?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And that would give, let's say you had your first reading, one, it gives your public a chance to hear it and give you input between the first and second reading. And there may be a question that you have, in which, can you adopt it a different way or something like that. That's when you would, between the first and second, I would hope that you could take it to, your superintendent and probably check with your attorney, depending on what the case is,
Right.
to see if it could be adopted, so.
And a lot of times with, we have our review in the spring and fall. Pat Krieger, who's our advisor, Neola, he's a former superintendent. He'll give recommendations on what he thinks would fit best for what county, what county.
Okay, I get you.
And so he'll show us the options, and we don't always have to choose right away. There's sometimes where, this could be, a choice that the board might have input on, it might be worth discussing in a board meeting.
Oh, all right, I was just curious, because.
Yeah. Something, it's weird, because some of them, if this is the law,
Right,
do
it's just
it all
what it
day. But there are things that, this fits what we do in Ovid-Elsie a little better than something else, whatever, your choices, they give you choices. I wish I could think of one right off the top of my head.
I
There's a
understand,
lot
yeah.
of COVID that.
A lot during COVID, yes, I'd like to avoid talking about anything about COVID. It would be great. I still get tremors from it, so. So really that goes, you can kind of see that even though the board's primary role is adopting them, there's always going to be a chance for input on any of these issues that you have here. So it's just trying to help understand that really the board is in the establish and adapt. When you set goals, you're gonna take advice, you're gonna discuss the goals for Mr. Horak. When you set your goals for the district, he's come with recommendations. You'll adopt them and say, these are the goals we're gonna have, but we're gonna have to slide on that here shortly, talk about some, probably get ahead of myself. But ultimately, he's going to carry them out, so we'll talk about that here shortly. Okay. Actually, the next slide. I think I did skip the slide in there, but I was just talking about the so the big picture there. So I did want to point out in this second page, it's not in a table format. It kind of says a lot of the same things, but it just depends on what you prefer. And I thought, well, it's a resource that we have, and some people like it in different ways. And, again, this one is more talks about manages, recommends for superintendent. and again, established and approved for the board, so. So this is kind of what we're talking about here. When you're looking at two different roles again, the board focuses on the end results. The superintendent will focus, yes, he's gonna on those end results, but he's gonna be focused on the means, how are you gonna get to those end results? So when you say what, he's gonna say, how are we gonna get there? Why, when are we gonna get it done? And so on and so forth. And you can see it there, you know, the board's gonna set the mission, goals, policies, standards, you establish those. Superintendent, what are the strategies we're gonna use to get to our mission or to reach our goals? What procedures will we have in place to meet the policies that the board has set? Or regulations, you know, decide assignments for, you know, whether it's building administrators or that, so on and so forth. Again, it's more on your role as a board, is approve things, monitor how it's going, if you get that results from your superintendent, and superintendent's documenting and recommending. So, does all make sense, or? And more on that, I feel like I'm going through this rather quickly, but it's kind of straightforward, so. If there's anything that you want me to slow down on, just let me know. So, I kind of like this graphic because, you know, you have the red line there, and you're all moving in the same direction. What left of the red line is, this is the school board superintendent working on it collectively together. Your district goals, the work, it says the key work and the goals of the board, and then the superintendent performance standards and goals. We work on those together. Yes, they'll come with recommendations, I'm sure, but you're really working on it together. When it comes to the other side, as we've already established, district staff performance, that's his responsibility, is to cover performance evaluations. Either he's doing them or his designees are taking care of it. You know, for example, your high school principal, probably going to do all your high school teachers, so on and so forth. And your elementary, take care of their buildings, and sometimes assistant superintendents handle the evaluations of administrators, sometimes the superintendent does it, so depending on what structure you have. That's something that you should not have to get involved with. He's going to be in charge of your school improvement plans, the MICA that you have. Whatever you know, he knows the process, he's going to work with the buildings to develop the school improvement plan for the district. And chances are your school improvement plan is going to match your district goals. They normally do. I don't know what you've said so far, but they've already been in place before you got here. So, any questions so far? So speaking of goals, do you have some goals in place already?
That was one of my questions was, when do we as a board set goals for super? And it's only 2 or 3 maybe, correct?
Yes, I would say usually you have 2 or 3 major goals for the year. And quite often they match your district goals, but they can be a separate one. So now is the time to establish. I don't know what evaluation cycle you're on. Is it normally a January to December?
We usually do it in November, but we were talking about that now with him just having started, and then you're supposed to do it in the middle, so that's kind of a discussion we need to have.
So officially, we could probably talk about that a little bit right now because we're going to talk about dinner anyway. So it's kind of a funky thing to do because, so you're really on the January to December cycle. You know, yes, you typically will kind of finish up the process started in November to get it done. So with superintendent, I would still recommend that you stay on that cycle because after December, you'll be back on the full year cycle. And that matches when you have new board members come on, normally they come on in January. And you really don't want a new person coming on and evaluating your superintendent when they haven't really been through, know anything about your superintendent at that time. So that's why, that's the most recommended. The second one is the July to June. You are required to enter into the ref evaluation for every single employee in the district once a year. So the window opens in January to report, and then it closes, I think it's June 30th, the rep report with the state. So, you know, I've had people that kind of wanted to skip, and you could kind of skip, but I wouldn't recommend it. You could kind of skip this year because there's an Alabama law that says if it's a mutually agreed upon with the board and superintendent, that you could be a reason to not have an evaluation. We don't recommend that because you want to maintain the public's confidence in what you're doing. So I would recommend that you do this kind of a skinny evaluation. You still have to fill out the whole rubric, which is hard because there are going to be things that you can't really evaluate at this time because he's only been through, by the time you do it in November, it'll be 5 months on the job. So there's going to be aspects on there that you haven't really had an opportunity to observe or work with. For example, even the budget. The budget was set before Mr. Horak came on board. So how much does he really own that part of the evaluation? Probably not much, although I'm sure he's watching and making sure you're following the budget and any revisions. We'll see what the state of Michigan does here, hopefully. It's all a guessing game. But so what we recommend is on any of those performance indicators where you haven't really observed it, you have to put something in there. So we recommend that you choose the effective rating on those. It's for the first year. Really, your most important pieces of it are what you can give to your superintendent in like written or verbal comments of what you'd like to see them work on or what's going well, what's not. You have to officially put a score in, but so that's our recommendation from NASB. We normally say, yeah, it's kind of a funky year, but do it anyway.
So our goals would be set, if we stayed on that schedule in January, correct? As a board, when we met for the year,
Yes.
we would sit down and discuss and approve what goals to set for that year, or should they be the same, or long-term and short-term?
They may be the same as what you have already kind of established. You may have established something already for this year, and you can continue on with them. Or you can set new ones.
And we should be setting them, or should we be working with the super to set those goals?
I would say you work together with your super. I mean, you could have some very strong feelings of what you want to see out of them and make sure he knows that, be upfront. This is what I'd like to see as a goal and set that as a board, but normally you work with, because you want to set them up for success, don't want any surprises. So,
And Mark, we did, that first meeting, we actually adopted some of my goals, just for the evaluation process, which was community engagement, visibility, transparent, consistent outreach, and then Mike kept aligned district planning.
that's a good place to start in that, and so you could kind of use that as the evaluation, part of the evaluation this fall, but keep in mind of what kind of increments can you really see in the first 6 months or 5 months? You know, how are you gonna measure, hopefully you thought about how will we measure community engagement? And if it was me, I would be asking the superintendent for things like, provide, examples of where the superintendent became engaged with the community. Was it, attending service club meetings? Is it having open forums at diners and, I don't know if there is any of those.
There is it?
Yeah.
All right. And I know there's a couple of open, so, that sort of thing, so. That's good data to be able to use. But they could still be, maybe when you get to January, you want to continue those goals, or maybe there's something else that you want to add. Like I was looking at it, I would think that what would you say about the money cap?
Basically becoming more aligned with the NICAP process with the district.
So, I mean, when you have district goals like that, it's usually one you want to do. So, and then,
We're in the 5th year cycle too, so it's a good time to look at newer NICAP goals adopted in the district.
so, you could redo those, or the only difference is that the first year, people ask this every time, you're required now to have your mid-year evaluation process, which is basically how you're doing on your goals, in a little bit format, written update. You do not have to have that for this first year, because you're going to do that in June of next year. So, does that make sense? We kind of just went through all the slides that I have left here. So, actually, this slide's kind of out of date because it's already, we already talked about it. I should say out of date, but we went through this. So, so you have your superintendent goals. Are there district-wide goals also, or is that?
Not that have been newly established since I.
Okay. So, but were there goals in place before Mark came on board?
I think Wayne set some for himself, but as a board, I don't ever recall discussing.
He had like a task list, because he was our interim, he created a task list based on things that we needed to do and get together, but knowing he wasn't our long-term, those were what we were working from and who did them and checking in on those. So that's what we were using until we had a new superintendent, and now as we're looking at district, strategic planning to get us back in that space where it's going to
Okay.
districts.
And if you're looking to establish a new strategic plan, I mean, that'd be something to maybe set as new goals for marketing and for the district in January. Would make sense, so. We kind of talked about this already. And we talked about this already because you do use MASB tool, I believe, for evaluation. And it's important that you follow that and make sure that any new board member any new board members that come on, that they get, go through the training on it. That's a requirement of the law, that your superintendent and your board has to be trained on it. Technically, if a board member did not go through the training, they're not supposed to take part in the evaluation process. I don't think there's going to be any evaluation cops out there from the state that can come and say, you didn't do this, but that is the intent, that everybody goes through the training. It's a lot of online opportunities, I'm sure, some on MASB that are coming up if you haven't done it, but as you said, everyone's done through that.
I didn't realize that you had, I signed up to do it on October 7th, if you want to look at your calendar. It's just online, but,
Yeah, but I saw that they're monthly.
yes,
Yeah.
so you can get it in before we do it in November.
I'll go sign up for that one.
So, yeah, I would highly, you can get it in, like I said, if there's anybody check up on you, but, it helps to understand it and get a little better idea of how the process works if you've never been through it before. And, you know, especially just to learn how the scoring system works and that sort of thing. And then it is, just as a reminder, it is research-based, and it's all based on, these are performance standards or performance indicators of what successful superintendents do for districts. And so it's all based on that. It's highly researched, so it's a great
How
tool.
often do you have to do that?
The evaluation?
Yeah.
The evaluations are required by law to do once a year. Okay. You can, after 3 consecutive effective or highly effective, in this case it'd have to be effective, 3 consecutive effective ones, the board can choose to evaluate every other year. You don't have to do it. There's a caveat to that. Most of your contracts for your superintendents are going to say evaluation every year. So you just have to keep that in mind. It shouldn't be an issue, even if you have it there, the board can still choose not to. But that is just something to have. The other part that you do need to have is in contracts is you have to require in their superintendent contract to have an appeals process if for some reason they wanted to appeal their evaluation, something didn't go well with them. They didn't agree with it, or there's something in the process so they can appeal it. That should be written in your contracts already. Some contracts had it, although I worked in one school district that they had an appeals process in his contract, but he appealed it to the board, the people who were already evaluating, which didn't make a whole lot of sense. And the law doesn't say who to appeal to, but you do have to have that in there. So, yeah. And also in the law, you're required to do the mid-year evaluation. So that's usually a one pager. There's some excellent forms on MASD. It's not the long form like what you see there. It's just to go over the goals. And I do want to warn you, I shouldn't go through the whole training here, but I'm going to. Just as a reminder, there's basically the mid-year says that you have to review the progress on the goals that you set for the superintendent mid-year. And that's one part of it. That part of the review can be done in closed session. And if you go on the MASB site, it's laid right out there, it's a PDF, and it tells you these exact instructions on both sides. The other part of it is you must also, any new goals or changes in the goals, you do that as well during the evaluation process, but when you do that part, it has to be an open session. So I like to look at it like this. Anything in the past, you go into closed session at the superintendent's request. Anything moving into the future is always in open session. We're discussing maybe the new goals, along with those new goals that are set, you do have to write in there, what are you going to do to support the superintendent in that? For example, you may set a goal of something that it's going to require some professional development, and so you would have to write in the plan that, we'll make certain that our superintendent is sent to this professional development series or something along those lines. So you don't have to follow that one with the state at all. You just have to make a copy of it, stick one in the personnel file, give one to your superintendent, and you're done. Again, will anybody ever check up on that? I have no idea. I doubt it, but you just have to have it on file and see that. All right, I'm getting like half the evaluation series right there. I am a certified trainer in that, so anybody wants to get that right off.
Perfect.
And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions on the evaluation process when you don't go through it. And also, MASB will have somebody, if you want someone to come out and facilitate it for you during the process. When we as a board to go over it, that can be done as well. So I've done that as well, but I don't know if I'll be able to do it this year just because we'll miss it about that. Okay. You have this here, we've kind of talked about this pretty much all the way through it. I would recommend that, as it says here, identify your goals, priorities, stuff like that, looking at your student data. And then you want to make certain that you have SMART goals, and you have a slide on this a little bit, but this is where you really want to work with your superintendent. And if you said, let's say next board meeting you establish, you said these are some goals we'd like to have, or we could even be doing that right now. It sounds like you already have them, so we're set for right now. But give your superintendent a chance to, present them to them, give them a chance to look over. It's like, okay, how will this change? What's going to be different that we don't see now? What will you use to measure the difference from now until then? But give the superintendent some time to craft the response. Don't just say, well, we're meeting tonight, we're going to set the goals and set it without having a chance to say, how's this going to work, and get some input on that. And then, as it says there, develop the SMART goal statement, which is this, which basically a specific goal, it's measurable. So you have your goal on community engagement, for example. Is it specific? Yeah. You're talking about getting engaged with the community, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's community engagement, that's one I often see, especially for superintendents that are new to the district. Measurable, is there a way you can measure it? It's kind of one of those weird things. You can measure it by, maybe you determine how it's going to be measured. How many community events did you do? How many open forums? What documented series of what was done to communicate with the community? Are they attainable? Is it relevant? And considering the superintendent's position, I would say that engaging the community is always relevant. So that's important. And it's a time-based one, so at the end of the evaluation, you want to say, okay, this one may or may not be done, you may continue it, but put an end date on it. So you know that's just what is meant by SMART goals. There are some examples from districts that are in here. We kind of pretty much talked about this already. I'm going to be honest, I don't really care for this one, but that's just my own personal thing. Because I don't know what it means to be like superintendent, so we're up to date on the regulatory and legislative issues affecting the district. I don't know how you really measure that. Another example, but like I do like the superintendent performance goal. The district goal is a little more ambiguous, but not as like many numbers. But I like to look at like the superintendent shall present an annual budget in February 2019 that shows an increase in district's resources directed towards instruction. That's measurable. You can see if it's been done or not.
I feel like on the last one where you were trying to think of like how we would measure, showing that he's up to date, like for us right now in the situation that anyone's in with no budget,
Yeah.
we've seen him send out a community letter. He sends out language to us where everything's at and his participation in the process. So it's clear,
Yeah.
like, through his communication with us and then through the district, even with like still providing school lunches, like, that's a big thing for people. That's happening in the legislature, but he's putting it out there before it's like a concern, you know, he's in front of
Yeah,
it.
yeah. That's, I mean, that kind of fits two goals, really. If you were to have this goal, yeah, he's remaining up to date, but he's also engaging with the community, and letting them know what's happening, so, yeah, good point, bro. And I don't know if this is, anything. I also like this one because, again, by September of 2020, superintendent will have seen to the development of a district-wide instructional model and plan for its implementation with full implementation by September of 2021. So again, kind of put a time on it, when you want to see this happen, that sort of thing. There are always going to be things like community engagement that are ongoing forever, they never stop. I don't think I've seen a superintendent's evaluation or goals that, every superintendent I've worked with has had that same, had goals similar to that. My years, every year we get, that was one of my goals, is to continue community engagement. That sort of thing. Oh, wow, that's pretty fast. For our objectives accomplished, we talk about school board superintendent roles. You feel good about that? Good. Any questions? I don't have any questions, don't decide on the evaluation process. We didn't really talk about the standards on there, and I can talk more about the superintendent evaluation standards. If you'd like to dive into that a little more, I didn't bring up copies for everyone, but you can't do that if you want to. They feel pretty good on it at this point. Except for those that haven't quite had a chance to go through it. We do have some district-wide goals, or at least for now, the superintendent goals. It sounds like in January, you'll get that going a little more when you're talking about the strategic plan. So really, that's when the section goals, so we want to keep that in place. And talk about the performance expectations a little bit, because you already had some goals there for them as performance expectations and how you do that. So, any questions? I do want to point out this other sheet here that I gave you, the colored one here. There are some good things here to help your superintendent and board work together smoothly and to be successful. Because I always like to say, if the board and the superintendent they work together, it usually shows me that you have a very effective, your district's moving forward. When the board works together, your district's moving forward. Because you both need to be successful in order to make it work. That's what we need to do for our kids. So, one thing I wanted to point out, there's a lot of good things here that I hope that you would take advantage of, some just reminders and tips to help your superintendent become successful. You're probably okay on the facilitating connections. I don't know, Mr. Rock may know some people in town already, so you don't have to let them know where the people to talk to and where to go for which restaurant to go to, that sort of thing. But I did want to point out this board self-assessment, and that's the second one down there. I would recommend, if you haven't done this as a board, that you should go to this masb.org/BSA, and you can take a self-assessment of the board. You can schedule that. It doesn't cost anything. It would cost if somebody came up and talked to you about it, I believe, and then 100% of that.
I think so.
But the assessment itself, it kind of tells you where you are as a board and working together. So that's been helpful to a lot of districts. And so you may want to consider doing that if you haven't done it before. So, all right.
What, is that like something you just go in there and take yourself
No,
and then
we
it's?
each take it and then we get like, a cumulative idea of like what we're doing well. and
What we need to work on.
Yes.
Yeah. And I believe I don't think you can just go on and take it, you have to like, they send you a link, I believe, or something like that to take it, and then they'll compile the results, so you don't know. It shouldn't tell you exactly well.
It's telling you as a group.
As a group.
Not individually.
Yeah, it won't point out that Becky Williams said this,
Right.
Mary Thompson said this, it doesn't do that. It gives you as a group, it'll show the individual results of each person, but it won't tell you who said what. So, and like I said, they can come up, someone can come out and work with you on that as well, once you take it, help you interpret it, if that's something you like. So, that's what I have.
I guess I kind of have a question, not for you, but just from this discussion, and thinking about the board self-assessment. And we're talking about like goals for Mark, so Mark's already set some. We've talked about it for a while, but we've just kind of been in transition. Like, is there anything that anyone feels like we as a board, like just that comes to the top of your head, or as a team, that we need to try to focus on to improve ourselves? And we don't have any goals, it's not that we need to set them, I just, after thinking about it, what we're focused on, what we're doing, what you're doing, and then we're trying to think about the district and thinking, like, are we all in a good place? Is there something we need to do better together?
I mean, communication is always key for all of us.
Yeah, sure. And I think the communication has been better after the start of the school year than the first half of the calendar year. So I appreciate getting those updates and a lot of times it answers the questions already, you know, that I've been thinking about. So I think the communication has definitely helped. So we don't have, you know, kind of the back and forth on the last minute by email kind of stuff, so I agree.
I think the board self-assessment might give some ideas of what the board goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Do you belong to MESA? M-A-S-A, not M-E-S-A?
That was the conference that was done last week, I may say.
Okay.
And that is the last thing on the sheet here, is I usually point this out, and, you know, used to work with Mark on what works for communication for your board, and it sounds like you've already been working on that. You know, I used to do, and every district's different. I would do once a week, we had a little memo that went out to board members, and there'd be, we kind of split it up. There'd be a section on the, just called superintendent section. There was a business and HR section, and curriculum. I guess we did have special education and their operations. In each one, we may only have a sentence, and sometimes one of those groups may not have anything. But it was a good way to get out to the board. These are just some general things that are happening in the district. And sometimes it was just a reminder that, you know, hey, we have coming up senior awards night on such and such a date. I know being on the board for Clinton Conteresa, I get a memo once a week from Superintendent Kashnek, and he just kind of gives you little words about what he was doing throughout the week. I'm not trying to make my work for your mark, but it was just nice. It's nice as a board member to kind of see that, because quite often as board members, we don't know what the superintendent's doing. Usually local boards have a little better idea. I'll say as an ISD, sometimes it's a little ambiguous what an ISD superintendent does. But they have quite a different role than a local. Yeah, so, but it was kind of nice. It was easy to do never the full responsibility of the superintendent, because you had your other people that could feed into that and help you out. And then we enter processes where, you know, a bus ran into a car or whatever, and then it was a quick text to everybody, that sort of thing. So you have your different ways of communicating. It depends on the situation, so that's just one thing that I like to do, but I have had others that, I think it was down in Okemos, it was like once a month, they would send out, we would send out what they call it the yellow paper. And, you know, an update of the district, and what we're saying. So every district has a different way of this is not, so.
In March Defense, he's already been doing that, he's been doing a very, very good job. Keep us informed.
It just really helps head off a lot of questions, and, yeah, it's good. Glad to see you.
Rick, to go, oh, go ahead. No, to go back to your question, I don't see you have a backside of your paper. Do you have 2 sheets there?
Oh, yes, I have.
So we've talked in bits and pieces, especially this spring, about an annual planning calendar.
We were just talking about it before the meeting.
Okay, perfect.
So the one that's on there, just
Yeah.
trying to go through that and us, like, find what it is that we need to remember to do.
And it would be great if that just kind of sat there in live binder. I mean, I know you need to junk it up more, but, you know, but so we could see, you know, what's upcoming and what those requirements are, because, you know, they show up on the agenda, but they appear to be regular things, but it would be nice to see what's coming.
And I think you can go to this, I haven't been on this in a while, the masv.org/soup calendar. And it's there, this one, it's telling you, okay, this is when, probably certain reports are due, when you have to have your rep report done, when you have to do your, financial reports, and just different things on, you know, things that every school has to do. And you get that also from the MASA website. I think they actually send it out. They used to send out like quarterly. I mean, these are
They'll
things
send
that
out quarterly, but you can log in on the website.
got it out there. So,
I've looked at that too and thought it'd be useful, so that if you have a question about, you know, like I didn't know that, the policy people come 2 times a year, you know, just in that, like, oh, that happens in June, especially for new people that aren't, you know, that then you can wait till then to ask your question about that instead of, you know, having to.
yeah. Yeah, well, the only thing that the policy people is, they're not always the most attentive. They're getting better.
It's fall-ish.
Fall-ish.
Oh,
We've,
maybe you could put that they're expected to come
yeah,
sometime.
yeah, it's twice a year. It's usually twice a year, and we actually, when I was at St. John's, we switched to, you know, to Troon, just because they represented us, and, we thought, well, if you're gonna represent us, your board policy, you better be able to back it up. And it was nice with them, because we get a little more time when things, the law would change, and they wouldn't wait till, Neola is more of a national company, it takes them a little bit longer. But that's personal preference on my part.
We've had some of those discussions too, and about the superintendent, so actually, everyone that I've talked to that has switched to Troon has been happy with the switch. So that's something we need to at least look at and consider.
When does that contract end with?
The end of the school year, or it's not?
We didn't see a contract, it was just you were paid by update.
Yeah, something like that. When we switched, yeah, there was a cost to it. I can't remember the cost or not yet. But really, the switchover was not that difficult. It took us like 6 months to go through. I just compared what we had in place to the Troon, and we go through and match on it. And I split it up by departments, you know, all the finance things I sent to our finance director. And we sat down and really hammered it out. And it made it easier for the board, so then we could just take it to the board and show where differences may be, and have the board have input on it, where needed. And to start out, Troon will have some things where, just like Neola, where you choose one or the other options. And so that's where, you board in for that, some of that. So I'm not trying to give a plug for the Troon. I know that lots of districts talk about it, and I think even Mr. Moran asked me about it one time. It really wasn't a bad change over. It was fairly easy to do. It's much smaller than what you created for.
One idea I heard just from being with board members recently, so maybe we could add it in your things you send out to us. Some boards divide like the things happening in a district, so like certain members will go to a PT, GV, or an SOS meeting, or they'll go to support something happening in the school. And I don't know if and I know you're never gonna get all the things, because there's concessions, there's all kinds of stuff. But like, for example, I saw today the high school is asking for volunteers to help with the PBIS. Like that could be something we could volunteer if we have the time in our schedule to go help. I mean, I don't have a high schooler, but I did because I like to go into the school. But when there's those kind of opportunities, maybe adding them in your updates so that if we do have time, we can try to go and show our support for the staff and the students.
Anything else?
One thing I just wanted to, not to take any action on, right now we only have a finance committee. And I don't want to have, 6, 7 committees like some districts have, because then it just becomes too much. But I would like to have a little discussion on what policies the board would view as beneficial. I do think, in my personal opinion, we would need a policy committee and a curriculum committee in addition to the finance. There are some other committees that could be developed if a need arises. One that I had in my previous district was a construction committee, because we had a construction project going on. But I would like the board to consider, adding a policy and a curriculum committee, policy, especially if we're looking at, within the next 6 months to a year, switching to Troon. Want to spend some time on that, and the committee would help with that work. So that's just something I think the board to think about, and maybe it's something to take action on, possibly in our next regular meeting.
What do you see as the difference between, like, when I think of curriculum committee, I think now what you have in your shared leadership? Like, so much of that comes in front of all of them. How would you compare, or?
Would be what they work on, and any new curriculum, or, if elementary wants to consider developing a new reading series, or maybe those types of things. I just want to have a committee in place so that when we're looking at curriculum changes, which happens, we have a committee to look at that and ask questions before it all comes to the board.
So you would have the committee, but we would only be working when something came along to.
You might only meet 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay, yep, okay.
And I don't want to have a monthly meeting for every committee.
Right.
Only when.
Yeah, and nobody wants to.
Yeah, I was just at a RESA meeting, it was a few months ago, and they were talking about, it was a STEM meeting, my STEM meeting, and talking about that, it's now state law that schools must teach, I think it was computer science by 2027. And so that's something, I think we've already kind of implemented some of that, but it's not just willy-nilly. I mean, there's a system, and you must meet those criteria, so I think that's a good one.
There's different ways of getting criteria met.
Right.
It could be doing at different levels, and we could have more input on that.
Yeah, I learned that when I asked the question about health education, like those 50 hours and all these models, and I'm like, okay. So I might be interested in that one.
Yeah, I think when I have committees, your finance committee is probably going to meet most often, but like the policy committee, we met like twice a year. To help, we still had the first and second reading, but we had, a few members on the committee they can say, okay, these are choices we're gonna have, and then the committee can come and help explain to the rest of the board at the first reading, this is why we chose this. You know, always had somebody that was head of the committee, and that's the person that can report out to the rest of the board, so. Everybody does a little bit differently, but that worked out well for our students, so.
So are you looking for volunteers, or you just wanted to?
Not at this point, because
Throw that
we,
out.
you know, we had set the committees, and then we can set the members. That'd be the action.
And maybe a, you know, paragraph of expectation, your expectations for the committee.
Yeah,
It's helpful to define the boundaries.
most definitely.
Mary, do you have anything else? You? Kevin, do you have anything else? Questions? Sue?
No, good meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you for having me back out. Again, I apologize, being a little late. Could have been here, but I said, yeah, I'm good.
I'll share the link with them.
No, that's, it's probably somewhere along the line, I was smart, like I always do, I would look at the online and I would notice that it was different time in the, no biggie.
Still got
It's
time for
weird.
Lions game, so it's good.
Well, yeah, I'm not whole goal, right, so we got the line game.
Yeah, the lines are 8:30.
Turns out I won't be doing that, because I go and pack my bags and get ready to leave early in the morning, so. I normally leave on Monday and come back Friday, so that's what they're planning, but, a little different this week, that's all.
Thank you.
Entertain a
Thank you.
motion?
Motion adjourned.
Or second all in favor? Opposed?
And you would enjoy the rest of the fall. I've been paying attention, I have no idea how football's doing in this area.
Pulled out one against Korea.
Yeah, I heard that was a.
Our soccer team's doing very well.
Very good, thank you.